right, we're going to call to order the Board of Education Organizational Workshop meeting for January 17th. If you could all rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Could we please have roll call?
Asper, here. Clement?
Here.
Barbara Garcia?
Here.
Isich? Morris?
Here.
Sadu?
Here.
White?
Here. I want to welcome all of you, first of all, to coming. I know, please be careful out there. Roads are certainly slick in spots. If anybody is here to speak for public comment, we do have the cards back at the table. If you fill those out and turn those in, we do need those turned in prior to the start of public comment, and we will call accordingly from there. You do have 3 minutes to speak. All comments should be directed to the board as a whole, and no personnel issues are to be addressed at this time. We're good? All right. We are going to move to number 4, which is school board recognition.
Yes, to the Board of Education, on behalf of the central office and district administrative team, we wanted to take an opportunity to recognize our board members for their hard work and dedication and countless hours of reading to, responding to emails, looking at information, getting prepared for our Board of Education meeting. So this is Board of Education Recognition Month. And so at your table, each of you should have a certificate of appreciation, as well as just a little thank you from myself and from the central office and building level and district level leadership administration team. So thank you for your dedication and your service to our community. Thank you.
Number 5, we have election of officers. We have all four officer positions listed. I need a nomination for president.
I nominate Marcy White as president.
I am willing to accept that nomination. We need roll call on that, please.
Asper, yes. Clement?
Yes.
Barbara Garcia?
Yes.
Isich? Yes. Morris?
Yes.
Sadu?
Yes.
Do you vote for yourself? White?
Sure, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim, for the nomination, and I look forward to continuing to work with all of you. On to Vice President.
I would like to nominate Jason Sadu for vice president.
Are you willing to accept?
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any other nominations? Anybody else? Can I have roll call, please?
Asper, yes. Clement?
Yes.
Barbara Garcia?
Yes.
Isich? Yes. Morris?
Yes.
Sadu?
Yes.
White?
Yes. Motion carries on Vice President. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
On to 5C, which is Secretary.
It is my honor to nominate Julie Asper to continue in her role as Board of Education Secretary.
You willing to
I will accept. Thank you.
All right. Can we have roll call on that, please?
Asper, yes. Clement?
Yes.
Barbara Garcia?
Yes.
Isich?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Sadu?
Yes.
White?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Julie, and congratulations. On to 5D, which is Treasurer.
And I would like to nominate Tim Morris to be the treasurer.
Thank you. It'd be an honor to serve.
Thank you. All right. Could we have roll call on that as well?
Asper, yes. Clement?
Yes.
Barbara Garcia?
Yes.
Isich?
Yes.
Morris?
Yes.
Sadu?
Yes.
White?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Tim. We appreciate your dedication to that. At this time, we will continue on with the meeting. On 6, our consent agenda. We have the December 13, 2021 minutes, December 13, 2021 closed meeting. We have December 2021 payables, January 2022 personnel report, anticipated overnight trips for 2022, depository funds with Huntington Bank, Fifth Third Bank, Michigan Liquid Asset Fund Plus. We have paying agent banks with superintendent signature for Huntington Bank, Fifth Third Bank. We have our list of legal firms that may be retained as needed. Rhodes, McKee, Boyer, Goodrich, and Tita, Miller, Johnson, Snell, and Comiskey, Troon Law Firm, Clark Hill, and Dickinson Wright.
I move that the board approve the consent agenda as presented.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Second by Brittany. Are there any questions on any of those? No? Could I have roll call, please?
Asper, yes. Clement,
Yes.
Barbara Garcia,
Yes.
Isich,
Yes.
Morris,
Yes.
Sadoo,
Yes.
White.
Yes, motion carries. On to 7, which is reports and information. We will have board committee and legislative assignments. I will work on those over the next week and get with everybody to make sure that those fit into everybody's schedule. Whichever committee you end up on, you'll be contacted by administrative team to try to coordinate a day that will work for everybody to continue with that monthly. All right? Thank you. I'll be in contact with each one of you. 8 are our discussion items. 8A will be budget amendments with Ms. DeVries.
Are with aligning our staff costing. When the board adopted the budget to start the year, that was back in June. So the changes that have happened between June and now, we're aligning to fix the budget up in those areas. There are some things I wanted to highlight for you for this fiscal year, similar to last fiscal year where we were receiving some CARES pandemic funding. This year we're also receiving some pandemic funding with ESSER 2. And with ESSER 2, we're expected to receive $2.2 million. These funds are going to be allocated in the following areas. Summer school that we completed this past summer in 2021, technology and accessibility, mental health supports, healthcare staff with our nurses and our building health paras, professional development. We're looking to do Capturing Kids' Hearts, which is going to be district-wide as part of our strategic plan. Our HVAC upgrades, improving our air quality systems, added and upgraded cameras to our bus fleet, as well as added GPS for our bus fleet. And all of those total $2,260,000 in expenses. So in our budget amendments, this amount is reflected both on the revenue side and then these areas on the expense side. Other key revenue swings I wanted to touch on is realizing $1.4 million in decline because of our student enrollment. So that is realized on the revenue side. Another area I wanted to highlight on the revenue side, what happened in several years ago in retirement reform, it was decided that the state was carrying this unfunded liability piece on the state's books, and they had said, no, that really is district responsibility, and that we needed to take ownership of that unfunded liability. And so the district has to carry that cost, and to do that, the state invoices us every month, and then they also reimburse us in revenue. So it's an in and an out on our books, but we do have to reflect that in our budgets. So for 21-22, the amount of that accrued unfunded liability expense is $4.7 million, and the accrued unfunded liability offset in revenue is also $4.7 million. So those numbers are reflected. And what happens in June when we adopted the budget to start this fiscal year, we were using the amount that we knew at the time, which was from 2021. And to align that to our new amount for this fiscal year, we had to increase that by $817,000. So that 817,000 is showing as an increase on the revenue side, but also on the expense side. Other areas of increase on the revenue side were in property taxes, the ESSER funding that we're looking to get, as well as other various grants, and athletic revenue. And if you remember last year, because of COVID, we were not collecting any fees and gate fees for events. And this year we are returning and able to collect those fees again. So this slide just gives a big picture overview. The first column is our 2021 actual numbers that came in after our audit. The second column is our adopted budget that we're currently working under, that was adopted in June. And then the third column is the budget amendment you're looking to vote on tonight. And then the far right is the change from our adopted budget from June into the budget that we're looking to adopt tonight. So I've highlighted that 59.7 million on the revenues, just to let you know, and there's notes below that does include the 1.4 million in reduction for the enrollment decline. And on the far right, that positive 1 million change in revenue, that's the net difference in the changes in that retirement piece I talked about, the ESSER grants that we're receiving, property taxes, and the athletic revenue. So in the end, that third column, you'll see that we're looking to pull 1 million from fund balance. That would put us at 9.2 million, or 15% of expenditures. And this will be put on our website and in your packet where all the board reports, documents. This was reviewed with Finance Committee this past week, as well as briefly highlighted at our Curriculum Committee. So I don't know if there are any questions.
Any questions?
Sarah, could you, when we look at the fund balance percentage of expenses, do you have a rough idea on the average in Kent County of what the percentage fund balance that districts are holding?
It is getting to be higher, so I don't want to quote. I'm not sure exactly what that average is, but I can get back to you and let everyone know what the average is. That amount is increasing. Okay. So for a while, those fund balances were getting pretty low. Those fund balance averages are building back up. I can say that the Michigan school business officials are recommending about an 18 to 20% fund balance, that amount to have on hand. Districts are gradually increasing fund balances, so that is getting better, because there was a while when many fund balances were getting pretty low.
Okay.
But I can put that in the board report and let you know kind of what the Kent County average is.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any additional questions for Mr. Breeze? No.
No, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sarah.
On to 8B, which is School of Choice Resolution. Dr. Martin?
Thank you, President White. We are entering that time of year where we prepare for our annual Schools of Choice resolution. Each year, Kent County districts pass a resolution to opt in and out of various state and local non-resident programs. What we're proposing in step with the last several years is to opt out of Section 105 and 105C, which are state-controlled and state-level programs for schools of choice, and opt into the Kent ISD Collaborative Schools of Choice program, which allows to maintain a degree of local control over our Schools of Choice program as compared to the state. So while this is not an action item tonight, I wanted to bring it up as we always do this time of year as a discussion item for future action. CCS administration is recommending that the board approve the resolution to opt out of Section 105 and 105C and participate in the Kent County Collaborative Schools of Choice program for 22-23. Are there any questions? Okay.
All right, thank you. On to 9, Board and Superintendent reports. We have a Curriculum and Learning Committee.
Thank you. Curriculum and Learning Committee met on January 13th at 7:30 a.m. There was no public comment. Ms. Prokowski shared the date changes to the reproductive health public meetings due to the snow days the first week of January. The new dates are January 24th at 6 p.m. right here at Duncan Lake PAC, and February 10th at 4 p.m. again here at Duncan Lake PAC. Bill Martin, a Caledonia High School principal, shared information regarding a recommended change to the vaping consequences to be more aligned with other area schools. This will be a change in the high school handbook and will be communicated to parents, students, and staff before implementing. As part of the requirement to spend ESSER 3 federal funds, public meetings seeking feedback are required. The following meetings will be had to share initial thinking on the funds and seek feedback from staff, students, and community. The staff meeting will be on January 18th at 4:15 p.m. at the Kent Intermediate School cafeteria. Community meeting will be January 26th at 6 p.m. via Zoom, and the student meeting will be at January 27th at 11 a.m. Ms. Bukowski also shared that on January 7th, the secondary administrators, 7th through 12th grades, and the curriculum department met to vision and plan. While there are many initiatives in progress to be implemented over the next 3 to 5 years, the following decisions were made beginning with 2022-23 school year. For testing out, a date will be added for testing out of courses in November of each year before the second semester, which will be the week of November 14th to the 18th. This will assist students in wanting to earn credits earlier with the goal of early graduation. Each department will keep test out to one cumulative test, a written test, a project, or a paper. Prep materials will be provided 4 to 6 weeks in advance. Second that we talked about was accelerated course options. Additional course offerings will be expanded for high school credit at Duncan Lake Middle School beginning in the fall of 2022 to include an optional high school health in 8th grade, world language expansion beyond Spanish 1, and expanded high school English and math courses. Course criteria to request high school level courses in middle school is being developed in coordination with the high school staff. There were no updates from Dr. Martin for this month's meeting. Ms. DeVries and Daryl Kingsbury provided updates from the Finance and Operations Committee meeting that was held on January 12th, 2022. The meeting adjourned at 8:46 a.m. The next Curriculum and Learning Committee meeting will be held February 17th at 7:30 a.m.
Are there any questions for that committee? No? All right, thank you for all of you. And then on to Finance and Operations Committee, Tim.
Thank you. Is my mic on? Everyone hear me okay?
I don't think it doesn't sound like it is.
I think it's up.
Is it on?
Might have to
Maybe
pull
just
it
need-
closer.
you can just closer to it.
Yeah.
I think it's working.
Good.
Yep.
The Finance and Operations Committee convened Wednesday, January 12th at 7:30 a.m. with all 3 board members present. Committee opened with public comment. Committee heard comments from a district parent regarding student safety at a school bus stop. The parent and administrators shared their positions with the committee members. Mr. Hess shared contract information regarding renewing a lawn care contract with a community vendor. Ms. Prokowski provided an overview of the agenda topics for the curriculum committee, also held that week. Ms. DeVries shared the January budget amendment information, which is to be an action item at the January board meeting. Ms. DeVries also shared the district's budget to actual and investment report for Q2. Mr. Kingsbury provided an update to the SET-SAG Family Health Care Center benefit, which the district is considering for those employees that currently are not eligible for district-covered insurance. We are excited to offer this valuable health plan to select staff members and will continue to the progress to inform these valued employees about the program's unique benefits designed to support them and their families. Mr. Kingsbury also shared the continued difficulty in finding staff, and unfortunately the need to cancel bus routes has been unavoidable. Dr. Martin concluded with no additional updates that hadn't been discussed already. The meeting adjourned at 10:09 a.m. The next Finance and Operations Committee is scheduled for Wednesday, February 9 at 7:30 a.m.
Any questions for that committee? Thank you very much. 9C is board trustee reports. Are there any additional reports by board members? I would only add that I am going to follow up this week. I do believe that our Adopt a Road ends this year, or the segment of time that we're signed up for. So I will look to renew that and follow up with everybody as far as that getting confirmed. 9D, superintendent report.
Yes, so I apologize, but a lot to report this time. Interestingly enough, the Consensus Revenue Estimating Conference is predicting or coming up that statewide, it is estimated that the state has lost about 44,000 students from public schools to either homeschool or private schools since the pandemic began, which is a pretty alarming number. According to countywide data, all schools districts except one saw some changes in their enrollment based on this. And so as we move forward, we'll all be looking to get out of the pandemic and start to see the enrollments go back to where they were. From the curriculum department, the department and the administrators are looking at various options for students beginning in middle school as well as high school. So some of the things they're looking out is adding an additional testing out date for some of the high school students who are wanting to earn credits earlier with the goal of an early graduation or to make room for other electives in their high school schedule. Before now, they only had one opportunity in the summer to test out of a course if they were academically able to do so. And sometimes what that created is missed opportunities for kids if they were on a trip with their family. So we have created another opportunity moving forward that will generally happen sometime in November to give those students additional opportunities to test out at the high school level. Also, accelerated course options, additional course options will be expanded for high school credit at Duncan Lake Middle School beginning in the fall of 2022. This is kind of in line with a lot of things that we've been trying to do as it pertained to creating more options after we went through our transition from K4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then into high school so that we could have a little bit better alignment. Some of the additional opportunities will be optional health class at 8th grade, world languages, expansion beyond Spanish 1, extending high school English math course opportunities for those kids who are able to do that, and course criteria to request high school level courses in middle school is being developed in coordination with high school staff. Also, the curriculum department will be working with staff, community, and students to look at getting some feedback that is part of the process from the state on what to do with the ESSER 3 federal funding. So look forward to some dates being communicated specifically for staff, specifically for community, and then engaging high school students to look at how best to utilize these one-time funds that were created during the pandemic. Unfortunately, due to some of the challenges with COVID, we're seeing a number of operational challenges. We have another bus route that was mentioned today that unfortunately won't be running tomorrow. We have the YMCA has reported some challenges with staffing shortages that will be impacting their program at Kettle Lake for before and after school child care program. And I'll speak in a little bit about some of the challenges that we're seeing. So right now we're seeing an incredible surge go through our community that's kind of wreaking havoc with some of our general operations. We are happy to report that our district will receive about $55,000 in additional grant funds. So as Sarah was doing her report tonight, this is another one of those grant opportunities. These funds were really set out to allow districts to deal with some of the school health services and additional support needs that students are seeing as it relates to the pandemic and other concerns. So we're happy to put that in use. The challenge is it has to be used by the course of this year, but we'll be able to meet that challenge. We'd also like to congratulate one of our teachers, Ms. Tammy Rowley. She is a teacher at Kettle Lake who was honored with the Excellence in Education Award from Michigan Lottery. She generously shared some of her awards with the staff by hosting a luncheon from Pepinos, and she humbly said that she does this work for, the work that she does for her kids is representative of the work that all of our teachers are doing. So congratulations again to Ms. Rowley. Great job. As we are heading into the second semester in spring, I just want to remind parents in the general community, pre-K enrollment has begun. People should have already started receiving postcards in their mailbox and other information going out about preschool enrollment, as well as the upcoming enrollment opportunities for students in any grade level. Also, we receive communication. First, let me speak to some of the challenges that we've been having with our operation. Last week, Monday, in looking at our attendance, we had about 193 kids out, and 126 of them were COVID related. The very next day, that number went up to 198, but 143 were COVID-related absences at the high school only, these numbers. And then late Tuesday, heading into Wednesday, we were already notified of possibly 40 more students being identified as COVID positive. At that point, we were looking at over 20 classrooms that had been identified with multiple kids impacted with COVID. Monday and Tuesday were really kind of the exam prep days for students. And what we were facing, or what we would be facing, is that if those numbers were to hold up, with over 20 classes with multiple kids identified as COVID positive, our teachers would have been faced with an insurmountable task of trying to provide another testing opportunity for anywhere between 140 to 180 students who were not able to be at school at no fault of their own due to COVID. And when you look at even a low end of 140 students at 6 different exams, and all the exams have to be in by Wednesday, and we have no school on Monday, it was just an untenable situation to put students in that predicament, nor would it have been realistic to expect teachers to be able to make all those accommodations. So last year, if people recall, the Kent County Health Department had guidance, and the state had guidance that once the COVID infection rate was beyond a spread rate of 10%, schools were actually shut down for a period of time. As of today, the last 7 days, the average has been around 37% in the Kent County area, and we're starting to see that impact in our students. So what the high school principal and high school administration decided to do was to allow any kid who was able to be at school and take the test. They were expected to take the test, and their grades would not be negatively impacted because some of those kids had missed a considerable number of days prior to due to COVID. For those students who were unable to make it or didn't have the ability to take the exam or missed a few days prior to, that was crucial. Those students, the exams would not be held against them. So any student who wanted to seek the opportunity to increase their grade, they had that opportunity, but we didn't feel that it would be appropriate to penalize those kids considering all the things that would be on the district control or the high school control, and it was a decision that I wholeheartedly supported. With that, we are also at a situation where, just as an FYI, based on information that has been coming in today, we are really teetering, particularly at the high school level, in terms of our staffing and being able to have enough staff to have the building functioning. So we will be monitoring this on a day-to-day basis, but we have approximately 15% of our staff who are not able to be there due to COVID-related issues. If that increases or continue, we may have no choice but to look at a possible closure for a period of time, just as we're unable to operate. We've been seeing this work havoc with our transportation as well as our maintenance and our custodial staffing as well. So, and even central office, we have a number of staff members who are unable to be here tonight as this kind of works through our community. So with all that being said, next was information that came out from the Supreme Court decision, and then that was quickly followed up from the Michigan Health Department and then the Kent County Health Department. The ETS requirement, which would have required testing for any unvaccinated staff member, as well as mandatory masking, has been struck down by the Supreme Court. So that has taken a huge potential burden off the district in terms of how to operationalize these requirements. But we have been left in limbo for several weeks, so that decision finally came out last week. The Kent County Health Department then updated their new health order. And so I put out a communication to all of our parents. Essentially, part of that new health order is masking and contact tracing is no longer required, as in addition to some of the other changes. So it was quite a lengthy health order and a lot of things to consider. So we tried to put some information to our parents and to our community so that they could understand under which scenarios should they self-quarantine or self-isolate if they are unable to come to school due to close contact or due to COVID. The last thing that I have is January 31st is the date that we are tentatively targeting for a board retreat. This is something that we do annually. It's kind of a time for us to look at some of our board norms and how we can operate most effectively as a administration and board team. So I believe we have that date confirmed, and Ms. Zoet will be sharing that information out with the Board of Education in the upcoming memo. So please plan on January 31st for a board retreat. And that is all I have.
Were there any questions for Dr. Martin?
Dr. Martin, if we do, let's hope we don't need to, but if something does happen at the high school, is there built-in days? Are we going to have to just add them at the end, or? So we all have 6 days, which is actually in the statute known as Act of God days. We lovingly call them snow days. So we have used 2. We can use 4 more. Then once it goes beyond that, the state superintendent has the ability in a unique situation to grant 3 additional days, or the governor. A couple years ago, when we had a massive storm that went through the Kent County area, the governor identified 2 or 3 days as emergency weather days, and so those days were not held against school districts, and many school districts, and I think we were one of them, had gone over our 6 days.
In a few situations, it was probably about 8, 9 years ago, the state superintendent did do a broad waiver of 3 additional days for a lot of school districts that were hit with some heavy ice storms throughout Michigan. So right now, we have 4 days to use. Because of the changes that I talked about at the start of the year, we don't have the same flexibility to jump online the way we did in the past. And if our staffing numbers, if we have that many staff members who are ill, it would probably be a very horrible experience to try to get that many subs and have subs teaching our kids in an online environment with all the changes and trying to not only be a sub, but trying to learn a new system. So we can take time off if we need to, but we only have 4 days left at this point. But if, you know, we're hearing that we're nearing the peak, and so I hope that is the case and we start to see things level off. But if we don't, I'm afraid I'm going to have to probably shut down a building or some buildings and corresponding activities to go along with that so that we can give our staff and our students a chance to get healthy and get back. Sorry for the long answer.
No, that's good. Thanks.
Tim?
Dr. Martin, a question about staff that are taking time off for the COVID issue. Is that something that is coming out of their accumulated sick days, or is there provisions from the state in any way?
So there is no requirement. Previously, there was provisions where it did not count against them at all. If it is a COVID sick day, i.e., if it has been identified by a medical physician, Kent County Health Department, then we try to work with them and not hold that against them. In some cases, they are able to return quickly. In some cases, it extends. So there is no hard, fast rule. If we can definitely identify that they're either close contact and probably probable or likely, we work with them and try not to penalize them. If it is beyond that, then, you know, I can't really prove it, but I think I was close contact, then no, they have to use their personal days.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Jason?
Sorry, another, actually almost a comment, but I'll let you answer. We talked briefly about the exam day, or the exams in the curriculum committee, because one of the things that I'd heard is that there are other districts that had exams that went on as normal, and I know we talked about it was the difference in some of the timing, so I didn't know if you wanted to elaborate on that for the rest of the board.
Yeah, so there were some districts, particularly in Ottawa County, that did a similar thing to what we did. We did this last year. And I think last year it was just almost kind of universally accepted because schools were closed down for a number of days. And some kids just struggled in online environment. When you look at this year and you look at the number of kids who have been in and out, it is very reminiscent, if not more so than last year. Last year we had to shut down schools based on the infection rate or the number of kids. If we had that same standard that was required by Kent County Health Department, we would have been shut down probably 2 to 3 times at the high school alone by now, and we certainly wouldn't be in school now. But when you look at the impact of kids constantly in and out and in and out, and even moving into the exam schedule, it was just really not a fair thing to do to a lot of our kids. Because some kids, honestly, they thrived in online environment. They didn't miss a beat. Some kids, because they had to be out because of quarantine rules, but they were healthy. Some kids were not feeling up to it, wasn't healthy, and they would miss 10 plus days. And that was going on straight into the exam. Christmas holiday break was kind of a godsend for us because we were kind of holding on for dear life, heading into the break and coming out of the break. We're also holding on to dear life So the exams, every district has been different. There has been some districts in our county who have closed a building or a couple buildings and have gone completely online and made modifications. So depending on when this goes through your school community, has a lot of impact on what adjustments schools may have made.
And if I understand, some districts actually do the exams before Christmas
Some,
versus after?
some do
Okay.
exams before Christmas, and so that generally has to do with the view of semesters. So some districts feel this way, that in general, it's not always a given, but in general, we see more inclement weather days in January and February. And so when you look at the majority of your 6 snow days, a lot of times that happen in the second semester. And when you look at the midway point in the school year, that doesn't happen until mid-January. So some districts feel that it is okay to have a shorter first semester, because if you're going to burn snow days, you're probably going to burn it January, February, and maybe a little bit into March, more so than November, December. We are a district where our teachers sought more of a balance of trying to have 90 days on the front end and 90 days on the back end. So with that, the way we deal with it is different than other districts.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Tim?
Yeah, just to follow up to Jason's question, the student numbers that we were given at the high school were in the 120, 130, maybe 150 range. Was the exam grace given to all students, or just these students that were?
Any student who was at school was expected to take the exam, unless, I don't think we have too many teachers that do it here. I know in some districts, some teachers will have something that if you are already earning an A, you have great attendance, they'll let you exempt out of the exam or different things like that. But the expectation that was put out with the high school is that kids were expected to take the exam. And, you know, knowing that our kids who are looking at trying to get into college, we understand that most colleges and universities have been a little bit fluid, given the COVID situation is unequal across the country with how they look at all of that information. But we didn't want to put ourselves in a situation where a kid, through no fault of their own, was legitimately sick or missed considerable amount of time, did not do well in an online environment, and took the exam that would be detrimental to them. Nor did we feel that it was even realistic to expect our teachers to be able to accommodate that number of kids, considering COVID. It's different if they just missed a day or they took a vacation, but this is just a different environment.
Yeah, I understand that where the grace is necessary, it's probably a good idea. I just, in looking at the letter, it doesn't really say that it's a group of students, and maybe that wasn't the intent, but I appreciate you clarifying that for all of us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any additional questions? No? All right. At this time, we're going to move into public comment. All cards need to be turned in, please. We also probably could have given a shout out to our operations department, because I'm sure some of you are sitting out there shivering. So it is quite chilly in here. You can tell it's after a weekend and we had the day off. So I apologize for all of that. I will read 3 names in a row just so that we can be ready to go. You do have your 3 minutes. First, we have Melissa Van Gessel for our CEA update, then Dwayne, followed by John.
Good evening. I'm here for your monthly CEA board report. Our semester came to an end last Friday. As a lot of you have discussed already, our high school teachers were faced with a last-minute change to the exam schedule. So they're now working to calculate exams and unit assessments and compute those final grades. Elementary teachers were presented with a new report card in early December and are working on navigating this new document and assessment schedule to get those report cards out to families the end of January. Teachers at Craft Meadows, as you've mentioned, continue to use up their contractual planning time to help cover classes due to no substitutes. Craft teachers are also working hard to update Google Classrooms, assignments, prepare materials, and assist students who are in quarantine. Emmons Lake teachers are doing school families. We've divided our kindergarten through 4th grade students into families. They then have one teacher that they all go to once a month. And you stay in that school family the whole time you're at Emmons. So for an example, I have students kindergarten through 4th grade. 20 of them come to me. We kind of build a school family community. And they'll stay in that family the duration of Emmons Lake. We've been doing some outreach projects and some based on trauma, really building some community outside of the 4 walls in their class students. And Kettle Lake classrooms are decorating brown paper bags with pictures and words of encouragement that are going to Blodgett, the COVID ward. These bags are then used to hold masks that staff use when they work with each individual patient. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Dwayne, then John, followed by Betsy.
Yeah, Dwayne, American citizen. I got some issues to speak to the board. Earlier, I think I heard you talk about some serious issues. Sir, I'm speaking to you as well. Speaking to the superintendent as well. He doesn't seem to be paying attention. Is he paying attention?
Gotcha, thank you. Continue
Sir?
on.
Can you look at the audience or not? Apparently, he doesn't care.
Please continue.
So you mentioned there were some serious issues in this community and, huge surges and so on and so forth. I don't necessarily see that resemblance in the audience. People don't seem to be too scared, too worried about coming out and addressing the board with their concerns. So I think you got that one backwards. The things that I think are serious here are the way you're treating the kids with their grades. Obviously, they can come into classes, get less than a passing grade, and yet we won't hold that against them. Is that what you said? That's what I heard you say. You even wrote it out in a documentary. I saw it, I read it. If they took a test and they got failing grades, it wasn't going to count against their final. That's the way I read it, sir. Was there something different? You can explain it to me. We've got the opportunity now to explain that. That's the way I read it. I would like to think most of the people here read that as well. You just said it yourself. Those that get less than failing grades won't be held against them for one reason or another. Mediocrity, is that what we want here at your school? That's what I'm seeing. The third issue, it was going on for a few months here, folks. There's been more than one gun issue at this school. More than one, and I've written to this board. I spoke to people on this board, including you, ma'am. And your answer to me was it wasn't serious because the gun was a pellet gun. That gun made it into this school, into your school, into someone's locker. That could have very easily have been a rifle with 100 rounds for all we know. I asked you if you thought it was serious. You told me no, it was not serious because the sheriff told you it wasn't serious. Those were your words to me. It wasn't a serious condition. No one was in any danger. That's only after the fact. What have you done since then to prohibit that from happening in these schools? That's what I want to know, and I think the parents need to know that as well. Yeah, this is an issue that was coming up a few months ago, but it hasn't gone away in my mind. This has been happening all around the country, and you guys are allowing that to happen and keeping it quiet. You're calling closed-door meetings to discuss these. You're not discussing with the parents what are being discussed behind the doors. They need to know how you're going to secure these buildings. What you think is serious, exactly opposite from what the community thinks is serious.
Thank you. Next, we have John, followed by Betsy, and then Cody, please.
My name is John Roche. I'm from Hastings. And for over a year now, we've had parents, the community, and students at large come here before the board to express their concerns, their complaints, with the way the board and the school system has gone forward with not just COVID, but their curriculum, CRT, and many other things. And for over a year, it's gone on deaf ears. I'd like to try and express in as few words as I can what that means to the rest of the community. want you guys to feel and understand is that I've wasted your time like you've wasted every single person in this community's time for the last year. Have a good night.
Thank you. Next we have. It is, oh yeah, sorry, the kid card got pulled over, yes. You and then Cody and then Angela. Thanks, Betsy.
We must learn to live together as brothers, or we will perish together as fools. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out our hate, only love can do that. People fail to get along because they fear each other. They fear each other because they don't know each other. They don't know each other because they have not communicated with each other. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Today, I personally feel like we missed an amazing opportunity to have our kids in school. We didn't have the opportunity to learn about a man who fought for equality. He fought and died for equality. Just think what a difference this world would be if we actually learned to live the life he dreamed of. Equality is an important word that seems to have lost its meaning. It's now replaced with equity. Equality, hard work, integrity has been replaced with equity, inclusion, social justice, and safe spaces. So I hate talking in front of all you guys. I shake, I get nervous. I always write a speech. I'll tell you what. We pretend that Dr. Martin Luther King matters. And I'm shaking, so I apologize. But does he? Do we really care? Is equality really what we're going for when our newsletters say equity? That's not equality. When our standards are being lowered, no matter what anybody says, we aren't doing valedictorian in our school. We don't do exams. There's hardly any homework. There's no testing. What are we having our children set up for? It's failure. Our country was built on hard work. People like Martin Luther King worked his butt off in this country to achieve something, not to not do homework because, hey, it sucks. They had a hard day. They had a cold. They fought. Our founding fathers fought for this country. We don't have that integrity anymore. It's not being taught in our schools, and it's really, really shameful. I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed that my kid goes to Caledonia. I had so many people email me from outside of the school district or send me screenshots that our kids weren't taking exams for no matter what reason. Other schools have that problem, and they're still taking exams. They still do tests. They still do homework. Our school doesn't. That's a huge problem. And I'm not ashamed to say, I am so happy my 4-year-old will never go to Caledonia, and my son will never go here after this year. That should make everybody worry that you lost $1.4 million because people left the school district. There is a reason why. Open your eyes and figure out why us parents are so pissed off. Because you're not giving the kids what they need. It's not about us, it's about them, it's about their future.
Thank you. Next we have Cody, followed by Angela, and then Jessica.
Good evening. My name is Cody. My question is to the board specifically. Individually, I would like a response on your beliefs and where you stand in regards to the changes to the testing and grading for the final exams. And I give you my email address on the card, so I look forward to a response.
Thank you. Angela, then Jessica, followed by John.
Hi, good evening. My name is Angela Regas, and I'm here on behalf of my two sons and the rest of the students in this community who have had to attend your school. I have the last paragraph from the letter that you sent out to parents and students. Our goal is to create an equitable opportunity for all students and to encourage students to study and prepare for their finals. But it doesn't really matter, does it? Because the grades don't count. But to avoid having an exam become a punitive measure for their learning, which that's what exams are for. They're for your student to want to achieve greatness, to get good grades. That's why they're in school, to learn. But now they can spend the entire semester doing whatever they wish, and at the time of the exam, I don't know, like my son's teacher said, you can just put your name on it. You don't need to do the exam. Really? That's where we've come? Good job. Good job, you guys. So glad we elected you as our leadership for our school. It's quite embarrassing, actually. So, and I'm kind of shaken because I'm kind of upset. And I wouldn't blame the reduction in enrollment on COVID. You can blame yourselves. You have been elected by the community to lead. Effective leaders encourage others to raise up to meet their goals and achieve success. Your ineffectiveness as a board has led to failed policies being adopted, such as not scoring tests. Students in your high school are now being told to simply put their name on the exams. They don't need to complete the tests. DEI, SEL, and CRT are just now more examples of failures in this district, which you claim that those things are not here in the school district, but they are. Just like you claim that people don't dress up as dogs and cats, but they do. We know they do. So you claim you are preparing our students to succeed, but that is simply not the case. You need to do better. You need to absolutely do better. I mean, you're now getting hit financially. When are you going to wake up? When are you going to wake up?
Thank you. Jessica, then John, and Bob.
Thank you, Board, for listening. I really appreciate it. I do want to start off that I am thankful that there's an options for masks in our K through 6 now. You guys heard me talk a couple of times on how I strive for option. Not all medical fits one. Some kids, feel, or parents feel it's okay to wear, that they need to wear a mask for protection. That's okay. Some do not, and that's okay. So I thank you for giving us the option for masks. As everybody has stated for the exams, thank you for explaining why you guys did what you did. However, those kids that were there, everyone should be graded appropriately, whether they fail, pass, same as we do with work. If we fail something, we get talked to about, or we lose our jobs. These seniors have to get ready for real life. In college, I worked full-time and went to college full-time. That we have to, as Betsy said, we have to strive for excellence. My son's only in 3rd grade, but I'm listening to kind of what's happening in the high school. And I'm hoping after the pandemic's done, that this won't be a case anymore. That everybody will be graded appropriately. I did write things on the card I want to hear from everybody about the exam, and also in some of our groups and how there can be more diverse groups as well. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next we have John, then Bob, followed by Bill.
Good evening. My question stems from the last dialogue with Doc and the deputy, which was an interesting night, and I appreciate the time for that. We had talked about maybe adding a resource officer, another school resource officer. I guess my question to the board is where are we at with that? Have we, I'm just curious in each one of you guys if you're for it or against it, and where we're at in that progress of trying to get that goal met. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob, then Bill, followed by Rachel.
Good evening. On this Martin Luther King Jr. Day, hopefully we can all agree that racism is unacceptable regardless of its intent or form, and that all students deserve the opportunity to be judged by the content of their individual character. I'd hope you'd also agree that as school board members, you have the responsibility to ensure this at the Caledonia schools. So last July and again in October, I requested the school board provide evidence of tangible policies that prevent our students from being taught that they are racist by virtue of the color of their skin, as was done to my son and his classmates at Duncan Lake Middle School. I've still not received any clear evidence there's any policies in place to address this. So I'll try to be a little bit more clear this time. There's a few specific asks. Are there any school-wide policies that clearly define this form of racist pedagogy as unacceptable? If not, why? Do new higher orientations make it clear that this form of racist ideology, taught to them at universities pretty widely, I might add, is unacceptable and will not be tolerated at our K-12 school system? Are their teacher training materials and curriculums vetted to omit any materials that assume any form of discrimination based on a student's personal characteristics, such as skin color, sex, religion, or sex, including heterosexuals? So after 6 months, I'm still waiting for some tangible documentation that says that this policy is in place and it's being followed, and that future students won't be subjected to this type of pedagogy. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Bill, followed by Rachel and Ian.
Good evening. My name is Bill Donahue. I've been a member of the district since '96. I've had 3 children who have graduated from the high school. I've always been happy with the school district. I currently have 4 grandchildren living in the district, 2 currently enrolled. 1 will be joining the school district next year. Here to talk about the high school exam. I understand the difficulty that it has presented to you, but I am disappointed that there wasn't more contingency planning put into place ahead of this with the thought that this could come to a head. I'm curious if the school board had any discussion about this before the letter came out. Also, I'm curious, your 4th to last sentence in the paragraph says, we appreciate your partnership. To me, partnership means that there's a 2-way discussion. In any sort of a good partnership, there's discussion back and forth. I don't know if any discussion took place with parents or if this was just made without any discussion, but I'd be curious to know what's took place along that line. Also, I'd like to know if there's going to be any sort of contingency planning if this were to take place in the spring or next year. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next is Rachel, then Ian, followed by Stacy.
Hey guys, I'm just here listening, and I noticed that you guys want to opt out of the school of choice resolution. Why would that be? Because you guys have been losing enrollment. I feel that this would help you guys, and for people that have kids that don't want to go to Caledonia anymore, this would give them freedom to go anywhere they want, really. And the $55,000 for grants for healthcare here within the school, who's paying for that? Who is providing that grant? Is it HHS? I think that's a valid question that needs to be answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Ian, followed by Stacy, and then Eric.
Good evening. So I'm here about the exams for the high school and just, I guess, the education overall. I'd like to know from the board members individually, I'd like a response from the board members individually, which one of you guys actually voted to have the exams marked as a pass-fail? Which one of you guys actually endorses that as acceptable for our children? I've heard a superintendent say that they're preparing our kids for the future, preparing our kids for the hardships they're about to face when they leave high school, when they go into college. I just heard you say that most colleges now are having some leeway because of COVID and so forth and so on. Leeway doesn't mean they're discharging completely the GPA system or their education here in the high school. So what happens when a child decides that they're not going to study for any class because it'll be unilaterally decided that they're not going to get graded on any exams? And it's decided the day of the exam, not a week before, not a month before. There was no discussion with the teachers, no discussion with the parents. And hearing from the questions from some of the board members themselves, it doesn't sound like you guys were involved with it either. It sounds like it came from one individual. Not sure who that individual was or is, but it doesn't sound like the board themselves took part in that discussion. If that's the case, then it's pretty disgraceful in itself. So what happens when a child leaves the high school and they go into college and they can't participate or keep up with those kids who have been given grades for exams or are being held accountable for learning the subject matter that they're supposed to be taking? So when that child decides to fall out or fail, are you then going to pick up the pieces and come and rescue that child, or are you simply going to wipe your hands clean of them? Are we really preparing our children for the hardships in the future? The answer is no. I've heard teachers are upset as well because you've now taken their control and power away from them. So why do they go to school to get their master's degrees, get certificates? Why are they spending the hours on hours and months putting together lesson plans when you're simply going to say, don't worry about that, just pass or fail them? What are they teaching the kids? Why would they teach the kids then? We have some of the best teachers out there in Caledonia. They're phenomenal teachers, and they have passion for our children. But when you take their power out from underneath them, what then becomes of the school itself? What becomes of the children? When the children see that their teachers aren't respected, what makes you think that they themselves will believe that they're being respected? Which one of you guys are prepared to stand up and say enough's enough? Which one of you guys are going to have the courage to say, this isn't right? Why are we doing this? That doesn't make sense. Why are we one of the only school districts to not grade our kids on exams? So if a child has a chicken pox, for example, forget COVID, for example, let's just put that aside. A child has chicken pox for a week. Does that child then get exempt from every grade that they're supposed to go through and every exam they're supposed to take because they got sick for the week? Or do you hold that child accountable to say, well, I'm sorry you were out, but you have to make up the work now. You have to go back and get the job done. Did either one of you guys go through your academic careers with a pass-fail? If you're on the exam table or if you're on the operating table and a doctor comes to you and says, hey, I got you today, but I only passed that one course. Didn't get a grade, but I passed it. Are you then comfortable with your loved one on the operating table? Because that's what you're doing to our children. You're not preparing them for the rigors of the future. At some point, you have to stand up and be leaders. The community elected you guys as leadership to follow the will of the community. I don't think the community wanted you to just pass-fail our kids. So at what point did you ask any of us, hey, we have this proposal out here. What do you think? You're good about asking us about where you want to spend some dollars. But when it comes to educating our children, where's that question? To the administrators and teachers out there, are you asking them if it's a good idea? If they said yes, I'm shocked. Because then, again, why are they teaching our kids? They have passion for our children. Do you? At some point, you have to be a leader. And at some point, you have to make tough decisions and do the right thing, not the easy thing. Thanks.
Thank you. Stacy and then Eric.
I'm hoping that I get a response from all of you board members. I put my information on my card, but I have a question. One is reiterating what Ian said about why were the exams canceled and at the last minute. My daughter has probably less than half of her exams have counted in her high school career. How does that prepare her for college? I would like to know that. How has Caledonia Community Schools prepared my kid for college, who is going to college? I don't get it. I also don't get your lack of respect of your teachers. At the last minute to cancel after they spent all kinds of time preparing for and coming up with the exams and the questions and all of the preparation that they had to put into making these exams for these kids, and then now they don't count. It's a frickin' slap in the face.
Thank you. Eric?
Hi, I have some comments I want to share about the exams, but first I want to touch on a different topic. People have come up here and been very clear with the expectations they have for you guys. I wanted to tell you one expectation I have, and that is if somebody is coming up here and talking and they're not identifying themselves, they're not identifying themselves as part of this district, I hope you're ignoring them. I mean, I really do. If they are not able to vote for you guys, it's kind of offensive to listen to them tell me what I should be focusing on for my child. So that's my expectation for you guys. As it relates to the exam announcement, I think there's a couple lessons to learn from that. One is any communication that goes out to parents, I think ought to be clear and express the whys and the rationale and so on and so forth. I think that's basic courtesy. Secondarily, it ought to do everything it can to minimize surprises. In the communication that came out, I think what I'm hearing both in this meeting and in some of the dialogue that came out after that initial exam communication was, it's really because there's been a spike in COVID numbers. And that's not clear in any of the information until we just heard it now. And I think in an announcement that came out like 24 hours after the initial exam announcement. And I think it hurt you guys a little bit. I think it hurt the public's perception. I think this was more caused by the spike in the COVID numbers and the inability to reschedule exams. All those sound understandable, but you have to understand we only can respond to what we have access to information to in terms of responding. So we don't know the COVID numbers, but they're high. So that would help if we could know them, okay? So my recommendation is we start creating a dashboard just like other districts do. Just share the information. Just throw it out there and we'll see the spikes. And by sharing that information, it'll minimize surprises. And I think that's everybody's goal. Irrespective of where you stand on this side of the topic, sharing factual data just can't hurt. It helps the parents out. And I think that's what was missing here, was the rationale was understandable, but we heard it in hindsight. So we just need to have access to that information up front. And then lastly, I would encourage that we prepare for this COVID thing to be ongoing. I don't think it's going away anytime soon. I think we ought to look at next December and say, you know what, we should have exams next December, not January. Because when you hit the holiday season, that's when people are exposing themselves to highly infectious interactions and so on and so forth. I don't think we want to put another exam cycle at risk. So I would suggest that we consider a December exam cycle for next year now. That's it.
Thank you. At this time, we'll move on to 11, our action items. We have budget amendments.
I move that the board approves the 2021-22 budget amendment resolution.
I'll second.
Second, thank you. Are there any further questions on that? Can we have roll call, please?
Asper, yes. Clement.
Yes.
Barbara Garcia.
Yes.
Esich.
Yes.
Morris.
Yes.
Sadu.
Yes.
White.
Yes. Motion carries. All right. At this point in time, I just need a motion to adjourn. Motion by Kyle, second.
I'll second.
Second by Jason. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Thank you, everyone. Please be safe.